Welcome back to the purple party known as Purple Nerd Channel. So, after a 21-year hiatus, The Time reunited for the album Condensate. Condensate was released October 18, 2011. It peaked at number 58 on Billboard's Top 200 charts and number 10 on the R&B hip-hop charts. One single was released from this album, that was the song Trending. It peaked at number 77 on the R&B hip-hop singles. There was also a video release for this as well. And speaking of videos, the CD is actually packaged with a DVD of a documentary about the time told by the Time. It is very fascinating, and I recommend, if you can find it somewhere, you should watch it. The album was released under the Time's new name, the original Se7en, as the name The Time was owned by Warner Brothers and Prince during the making of this project. They really didn't want to get into a long, costly legal dispute to use the name, so they decided just to go ahead and change their name. You'll also notice on the cover that it says the original Se7en, and then in small print, the band formerly known as The Time, is a kind of a play on Prince's whole, the artist formerly known as Prince. So what did they do for the last 21 years? Well, Jesse Johnson took a break from making soundtracks and released Verbal Penetration in 2009. Monty Moore released his solo album The Side of Paradise in 2001, while him and Jelly Bean Johnson continued to write hits with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis became the go-to producers for R&B and pop, producing hits for Boyz II Men, Jordan Knight, Usher, Shantae Moore, Mariah Carey, and many, many more. They also produced 4 more albums for Janet Jackson, those being The Velvet Rope, All For You, Demita Joe, and 20YO. These albums combined sold over 20 million copies. After the failed solo project Guaranteed, Morris Day took a break from music to do, as he calls, the family thing. He would eventually come back in 2004 with the album It's About Time. He also got back into acting, primarily doing independent film like the family comedy Boys Club.
I was here first. Theodore Marks, #1 basketball talent scout for Cal Poly High in the house.
Couldn't make the team, huh?
Morris Day also started touring again with his band Morris Day and The Time. We get to see this version of the band in Kevin Smith's film Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Morris Day and The Time!
They actually started this project with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis back in 1998. From 1998 to about 2008, Morris Day would visit Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis at their Flight Time studios, and sporadically they would record new music together. Being that Monty Moore and Jelly Bean Johnson were on staff at Flight Time as producers, they were already cool and sold on the whole concept of doing another Time record. And of course, Jerome Benton was cool with it, as he was on tour with the Morris Day and The Time band. The only person to convince still was Jesse Johnson, who was the last person to reunite with the group. All 14 songs are written and produced by Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, 16 total tracks if we include the intro and the one skit that's on the album. 5 of the songs were co-written by Morris Day, and 4 of them were co-written and co-produced by Jesse Johnson. The entire album is a fun funk masterpiece. Some of my favorite tracks are Strawberry Lake,
Let's go to Strawberry Lake. I wanna go.
Sick,
Girl, your shit is sick. And babe, you need.
Cadillac,
What should I take?
Cadillac.
Should I take the Audi?
No.
Or should I take the Jag?
Toast to the Party Girl,
Toast to the party girl. Yeah, yeah. Come on, let's party.
and Hey Yo.
We get it poppin', yeah. Let's rock it out tonight. Rockin' and rollin'.
The album is complete with some just straight fire ballads like Faithful,
And away we go. We gon' be faithful. Oh, girl.
and Go Home to Your Man.
Got to go home to your man.
The title track breaks down the name of the album, because you see, Morris is cool, therefore he doesn't sweat, he condensates. The band started promoting this album before its completion by making several big appearances, the first being at the 50th Grammy Awards, where they performed with Rihanna in 2008. Summer of 2008, they booked the Flamingo in Las Vegas and did a whole series of shows there. and in 2009 they appeared at the Fox Theater in Detroit, where they made the official announcement of the new album coming and their name change. After the release of the album, they appeared on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno to perform, and they performed at the Soul Train Music Awards. And just like in usual time fashion, the group broke up again. And just like usual, it's really because of Jesse Johnson. Just like how, with the whole Drew Hill incident where they were on the radio promoting their new album and their band member Woody decided to quit the group right there in the middle of the interview, Jesse Johnson kind of sort of did the same thing, but via Twitter. So all the guys are on Twitter and they're talking up the album that they've released and talking up all the shows they got coming up, promoting the project. When Jesse Johnson decides to pop in there and go on this rant about how he was born to be alone and how he should always be solo, basically saying that he doesn't really fit in a band and being in a band is not his thing. So right there on Twitter, in the middle of the Twitter feed, he quits the group. The interesting part is he makes this big old tirade about not belonging to a band when 2 weeks later, he joins D'Angelo's band, The Vanguard, while he's on tour. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis went back to producing hit records and even released their first solo album, Jam and Lewis Volume 1, in 2021. Monty Moore and Jelly Bean Johnson would make an occasional appearance here and there, playing with the Morris Day and the Time Band, although Jelly Bean Johnson actually put out his first solo album, Get Experience, in 2020. Over the next couple years, Morris Day would release several singles and put out a best-selling book called On Time, A Princely Life in Funk. After some legal disputes with the Prince estate, and in particular, him having the legal right to use the name Morris Day and the Time, Morris announced that he would be retiring from music completely. His final album, Last Call, is scheduled to be released November 11th of this year, and yes, there will be a Last Call tour, so everyone can see Morris Day one last time before he hangs up his Stacey Adams. Thank you all again for joining me on this episode. Please like and share this video as much as possible, and always please subscribe to the channel. And for those of you who have been a little bit worried, want to know why I'm talking about so much time stuff on a Prince channel, don't worry, the next video is 100% Prince focused, but you know what? The Time is part of the Prince family, and I felt I needed to tell their story just as well. So, until that next Prince episode, I wish you heaven.